There is a strange irony about money. The people who desperately chase it often never seem to keep it, and the people who quietly understand it somehow attract more of it throughout their lives. For thousands of years, this pattern has repeated itself. Different countries, different currencies, different technologies, different generations. Yet the same psychological mistakes continue to destroy fortunes before they are ever built. What's fascinating is that one of the clearest explanations of this phenomenon wasn't written by a billionaire from Silicon Valley. It wasn't discovered by modern economists. It wasn't hidden inside Wall Street. It came from a city that disappeared thousands of years ago. A city of merchants, traders, gold, power, and human ambition. Ancient Babylon, a place so wealthy that it became legendary. A civilization where people wrestled with the exact same financial frustrations we struggle with today. The feeling that no matter how much money arrives, it somehow disappears. The feeling that everyone else seems to be getting ahead. The feeling that wealth belongs to some mysterious group of people who possess knowledge we don't. And buried within the stories of Babylon is a realization that is both uncomfortable and liberating. The problem was never money. The problem was human nature. Because wealth is rarely destroyed by bad mathematics. It is destroyed by emotions, by ego, by impatience, by social pressure, by the invisible psychological forces most people never notice controlling them. And that's where our story begins. Not with gold, not with riches, but with frustration, the kind of frustration millions feel today. Imagine waking up every morning, working, struggling, pushing yourself through long days, only to discover that at the end of every month, your pockets are somehow empty again. You tell yourself next month will be different, next year will be different, after the promotion, after the raise, after the business succeeds, after life finally gives you a break. But something strange keeps happening. Your income grows, yet your freedom doesn't. More money enters your life, yet somehow it vanishes just as quickly. And this is exactly where we meet Bansir, a chariot builder in Babylon, a hard-working man, a skilled craftsman, someone who should have been successful. Yet he sat outside his home one day, staring into the distance, exhausted, defeated, not because he lacked talent, not because he lacked discipline, but because despite years of effort, he remained poor. And this moment matters because it reveals one of the greatest illusions people believe, that hard work alone creates wealth. It doesn't. Hard work creates income. Those are not the same thing. A person can spend their entire life working harder than everyone around them and still remain financially trapped, because effort and wealth operate according to different rules. This realization is uncomfortable. We are taught that struggle guarantees reward, but reality is far more complicated. The world is filled with exhausted people carrying dreams that never materialized. Not because they were lazy, because they misunderstood the game. And Babylon understood something most people never do. Money is not earned once. It is managed every day. Which brings us to a man named Arcad, the richest man in Babylon. At least that's what everyone believed. People looked at him the way modern society looks at billionaires, with admiration, curiosity, envy, suspicion. Some assumed he got lucky. Others believed he possessed special gifts. Many secretly hoped his success couldn't be replicated, because if wealth can be learned, excuses become harder to maintain. And excuses are comforting. They protect the ego. They allow us to believe circumstances are responsible for everything. But Arcad shattered that illusion, because he wasn't born rich. He wasn't born powerful. He wasn't born special. He simply learned something most people never learn. Money follows behavior, not wishes, not intentions. Behavior. This sounds obvious, yet almost nobody lives this way. People treat money emotionally. Arcad treated money strategically. And that difference changed everything. Think about what happens when most people receive money. before it even arrives, it already has owners. Bills, subscriptions, status purchases, impulse spending, social obligations. The money enters their hands only briefly before continuing its journey elsewhere. They're not really earning money. They're acting as temporary transportation for it. Money arrives, money leaves, nothing remains. Arcad saw this pattern and made a decision that looked insignificant at first, a decision so small that most people would dismiss it. He decided to keep part of everything he earned, not after expenses, before expenses, a subtle difference, a life-changing difference, because the moment he did this, he transformed his relationship with money. He stopped behaving like a consumer and started behaving like an owner, and psychologically, this is where everything changes. Most people think wealth is built through dramatic moments, huge investments, massive breakthroughs, life-changing opportunities. But wealth usually begins with identity. The moment someone starts seeing themselves differently, the moment they stop saying, "I'll save what's left," and start saying, "I'll keep what's mine first." This is not merely a financial shift. It's a psychological revolution. Because every act of saving sends a message to the subconscious, a message that says, "My future matters," and human beings behave differently when they believe their future matters. But there was another lesson hidden beneath this one, a darker lesson, one that becomes increasingly important as wealth grows. Because making money is difficult, keeping it is often harder. The moment people accumulate resources, a new threat emerges. Advice. Everyone suddenly becomes an expert. Friends, family, strangers, colleagues. Everyone has an opportunity. Everyone has a shortcut. Everyone knows how to double your money. And this is where human psychology becomes dangerous. Because people do not fear losing money as much as they fear missing opportunities. Missing out feels painful. Watching others get rich feels painful. The ego hates being left behind, which makes intelligent people surprisingly vulnerable to manipulation. Arcad learned this lesson the hard way. Like countless investors throughout history, he trusted someone who sounded confident, someone who appeared knowledgeable, someone who promised rewards, and he lost money. Not because he lacked intelligence, because he lacked wisdom. There is a difference. Intelligence gathers information. Wisdom understands human nature, and human nature is filled with blind spots, especially when greed enters the room. Greed narrows perception. It makes impossible outcomes feel reasonable. It makes risk appear smaller than it is. It creates urgency where none exists. The mind becomes intoxicated by possibility, and when emotion takes control, judgment quietly leaves through the back door. This is why scams survive every generation. Technology changes. The psychology doesn't. The promise is always the same. Easy money, fast money, effortless money, and human beings continue believing it because deep down, everyone wants the reward without the process. Babylon understood this. Arcad understood this, which is why he developed a simple principle. Seek advice from those who have actually succeeded in the thing you're trying to achieve. A concept that sounds obvious, yet most people do the opposite. They seek financial advice from financially struggling people, relationship advice from unhappy couples, business advice from those who never built businesses, and then wonder why their lives reflect the opinions they absorbed. Because human beings are social creatures. We imitate before we think. We follow before we analyze. We absorb beliefs from our environment, often unconsciously, which means your future is frequently hiding inside the voices you listen to every day. And that realization should make everyone pause, because not all influence looks dangerous. Some influence feels comfortable. Some influence feels familiar. Some influence comes from people who genuinely care about us. Yet they unknowingly transfer their fears, their limitations, their insecurities, their scarcity, until we begin living inside a psychological prison we didn't build ourselves. Babylon teaches us to question those walls, to ask, who taught me what money means? Who taught me what success looks like? Who taught me what is possible? And are they qualified to answer? These questions become even more important when we explore another idea hidden inside the story, the idea of desire. Because contrary to popular belief, poverty is not always caused by lack. Sometimes it's caused by excess desire. Humans are fascinating creatures. The moment one desire is fulfilled, another appears, then another, then another. The finish line keeps moving, and because of this, many people become trapped in permanent dissatisfaction. No amount is enough. No achievement satisfies. No lifestyle feels secure. They become wealthy externally, while remaining poor internally. Arcad understood that wealth without control creates chaos, because if desires expand faster than income, no amount of money can create freedom. Think about modern society. The pressure to upgrade. Upgrade your phone. Upgrade your house. Upgrade your car. Upgrade your lifestyle. Upgrade your image. The message is relentless. You are never enough. What you have is never enough. Someone else always has more. And when people internalize this belief, they become perfect consumers, always chasing, never arriving. The tragedy is that many spend decades earning money they don't need to buy things they don't care about, to impress people they don't even like. Not because they're irrational, because social status is one of humanity's oldest psychological drives. We evolved in tribes. Acceptance meant survival. Rejection meant danger. So our brains still obsess over perception. How others see us, how we compare, how we rank, and entire industries profit from this weakness. They don't sell products. They sell identity. They sell status. They sell emotional relief, temporary relief, because the feeling never lasts. A new comparison always appears. A new standard emerges. A new desire takes its place. And suddenly the race begins again. Babylon's wisdom cuts through this illusion. True wealth isn't measured by what leaves your pocket to impress others. It's measured by what remains under your control. Freedom, time, security, options. The ability to say no. The ability to walk away. The ability to make decisions from strength rather than desperation. And perhaps this is the most misunderstood form of wealth in existence, because it cannot always be seen. The richest person in a room may not be wearing the most expensive watch. They may simply be the person who doesn't need anyone's approval. The person whose financial choices aren't driven by insecurity. The person who understands that perception and reality are often enemies. This insight becomes even more powerful when we examine another hidden theme within Babylon: patience, a trait that modern culture quietly discourages. Everything around us promotes speed, instant delivery, instant entertainment, instant validation, instant success stories. Yet wealth rarely moves at the speed of emotion. It moves at the speed of discipline. And discipline is boring, which is why it works. People underestimate consistency because it lacks drama. Small actions feel insignificant until years pass. Then suddenly the insignificant becomes extraordinary. A seed becomes a forest. A coin becomes a fortune. A habit becomes a destiny. This is why Babylon places such emphasis on allowing money to multiply. Because money has a strange characteristic. When protected and directed properly, it begins working independently. And once that process starts, something remarkable happens. Time becomes your partner. Most people spend their lives fighting time. We fear aging, fear lost opportunities, fear running out of years. But wealth transforms time into an ally. Every day becomes productive. Every month contributes. Every year compounds. And compounding may be the closest thing to magic that exists in the real world. Not because it is mysterious, because it is invisible. At first, its effects are tiny, almost unnoticeable. then suddenly enormous, like a river carving through stone, slowly, patiently, relentlessly, until the landscape itself changes. Which brings us to the deepest lesson of the richest man in Babylon, a lesson that has almost nothing to do with money and everything to do with self-mastery, because beneath every financial decision exists a psychological decision. Spend or wait, follow emotion or follow reason, seek approval or seek freedom, choose comfort or choose growth, again and again, day after day, year after year. These tiny invisible battles eventually create entire lives. The wealthy and the poor often face the same temptations, the same fears, the same desires. The difference frequently lies in what they do when those emotions appear. One obeys them, the other observes them. One reacts, the other chooses. And over decades, those choices compound into radically different futures. This is why the book continues surviving generation after generation. Not because it teaches money, because it teaches human nature. Money merely exposes what was already there. It amplifies habits, magnifies character, reveals discipline, exposes impatience, uncovers insecurity. Money is not a creator, it is a mirror. And that mirror often reflects truths people would rather avoid. Which leaves us with one final question. If Arcad were alive today, would his message really be about becoming rich? Or would it be about becoming the kind of person capable of handling wealth when it arrives? Because perhaps the greatest secret hidden inside Babylon is this. The gold was never the treasure. The transformation was. The gradual transformation from impulsiveness to discipline, from envy to confidence, from dependence to self-reliance, from emotional decision-making to intentional living. And maybe that's why these ancient stories still feel strangely alive. Because while civilizations rise and fall, human nature remains remarkably consistent. The technology changes, the currency changes, the economy changes, but the battle inside every human being remains the same. The battle between immediate pleasure and future freedom. The battle between appearance and reality. The battle between desire and wisdom. And in that battle, every person eventually chooses who they become, long before they choose what they earn. Because wealth is not built the day money arrives. It is built during thousands of invisible moments when nobody is watching. Moments where character quietly shapes destiny. Moments where discipline defeats impulse. Moments where the future is chosen over the present. That was true in Babylon. It's true today. And it will still be true long after we're gone. Because fortunes begin in wallets. But wealth begins in the mind.